Danny Fletcher ran through the Wyoming darkness with his sister's hand locked in his bloody grip. Behind them, fire screams their father begging for mercy before the gunshot. Ahead, one last chance. A stranger's cabin, the porch light flickering like hope itself. He pounded on the door with his one good arm. The other hung useless, sliced open by Ravenna's hatchet. The door opened. A tall man, scarred and hollow-eyed, stood silhouetted against the firelight. "Please," Danny gasped, 14 years old and dying. "If they come, hide my sister." The stranger looked at the blood, at the smoke rising behind them, at the little girl's terrified face. Then Jacob Morrow reached for the rifle he'd sworn never to touch again. Before we begin, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the end of this story. Comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Now let's begin. Danny Fletcher knew he was dying. The realization came not with panic, but with a strange cold clarity as he stumbled through the cottonwood grove behind the stranger's cabin. Blood soaked through his shirt, hot, sticky, relentless. His left arm hung at an unnatural angle where Ravenna's hatchet had caught him during the escape. The pain had been white-hot at first, but now it was fading into numbness that scared him more than the agony had. That numbness meant he was running out of time. "Danny." Sally's voice was small, breathless beside him. "Danny, I can't run anymore." He tightened his grip on her hand. 10 years old, blonde braids flying her cornhusk doll clutched in her other hand. Mama Ruth, she'd named it after their mother. Their mother who was, "Don't think about it. Keep moving. Get Sally safe. That's all that matters. Just a little further, Sal. See that light? That's a cabin. Someone lives there. They'll help us." But what if they don't? What if they're like the others? What if... They won't be. Danny forced certainty into his voice, though he felt none. They won't be. The cabin materialized out of the darkness like an answer to a prayer he'd been too terrified to speak aloud. Small weathered smoke curling from the chimney. A single lantern burning on the porch. Someone was home. Danny's legs gave out 3 steps from the porch. He hit the wooden stairs hard, felt something in his chest crack, tasted copper. Sally screamed his name, but the sound came from very far away like he was underwater. Get up and knock. Get Sally inside. Get her safe." He crawled up the steps on his one good arm, Sally crying behind him, trying to help, too small to lift him. His vision tunneled. The door loomed impossibly tall. Danny raised his fist and pounded. "Please." The word ripped from his throat. "Please, someone." The door swung open. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, maybe 40 years old. Dark hair threaded with gray, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Eyes that had seen too much and wanted to see less. He wore a simple shirt and worn pants, and in the lamplight behind him, Danny could see the interior of a sparse cabin, table chairs, rifle leaning against the wall. The man looked down at Danny, at the blood spreading across the porch boards, at Sally tear-streaked and trembling. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dead eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. "Please," Danny said again, his voice breaking. "If they come, hide my sister." The world tilted sideways. Danny felt the porch boards against his cheek, heard Sally screaming, heard the man's boots moving fast, felt strong hands catching him before the darkness took him completely. The last thing he heard was the man's voice, rough as gravel and unexpectedly gentle. "I got you, son. I got you both." 6 hours earlier, the Fletcher family had sat down to supper. Martha Fletcher set the pot roast on the table, steam rising, filling their small homestead with the smell of comfort and safety. Thomas Fletcher carved while Danny passed plates, and Sally set out the bread. "Good bread, Sally girl," Thomas said, winking at his daughter. "Almost as good as your mama's." "Almost." Martha laughed, swatting at her husband with a dish towel. I'll have you know I taught her everything she knows. Then she's learning from the best. Thomas pulled Martha close, kissed her temple. The very best. Danny watched his parents, saw the love that still lived between them after 15 years of marriage, and felt something warm settle in his chest. This was what mattered. Not land or money or status. Just this family gathered around a table, safe and together. The knock on the door shattered everything. Thomas's smile faded. Stay here. Tom, Martha started. Stay. Here. Thomas crossed to the door, his hand moving to the shotgun mounted above the frame. He didn't take it down, but Danny saw his father's fingers brush the stock. Ready. Thomas opened the door. Can I help you, gentlemen? Thomas Fletcher. The voice from outside was smooth-cultured. Wrong for the Wyoming frontier. My name is Cole Ravenna. I represent certain business interests in Cheyenne. May we come in? Rather you didn't. State your business. A pause. Then, I admire directness. Very well. You have something we need. Your land. Specifically the mineral rights to the hills behind your property. We're prepared to offer fair compensation. Not for sale. Mr. Fletcher, I don't think you understand. I understand just fine. This is our home. Been in my family 3 generations. My grandfather built this cabin with his own hands. We're staying. Another pause, longer this time. When Ravenna spoke again, the smoothness was gone. Mr. Fletcher, I should inform you that according to our records, you defaulted on a loan from Blackwell Banking in Cheyenne. The land is collateral. Unless you can produce $3,000 by tomorrow noon, we're authorized to take possession. That's a lie. Thomas's voice went hard. I never borrowed a cent from Blackwell or anyone else. The paperwork suggests otherwise. Then the paperwork is fraud, and you know it. Silence. Danny felt his mother's hand find his shoulder grip tight. Sally moved closer, sensing danger. Mr. Fletcher. Ravenna's voice dropped, went cold. I'm trying to be civilized about this. Sign over the land. Take the $500 we're offering. Leave tonight. By morning, this will all be a bad memory. And if I don't, then tomorrow becomes very difficult for everyone involved. Get off my property. Thomas's hand closed around the shotgun. Now. You're making a mistake. The only mistake is thinking you can steal from honest people and call it business. I know Thurston Blackwell. I know what he does to homesteaders who have land he wants. Well, he can't have mine. Now get before I put buckshot in your backside. Footsteps retreating, the sound of horses moving away. Thomas shut the door, but he didn't put down the shotgun. Tom. Martha's voice shook. What does this mean? Thomas turned to look at his family. Danny saw fear in his father's eyes, real fear for the first time in his life. It means they're coming back, Thomas said quietly. Tonight, probably. And when they do, they won't be talking. We could run, Martha started. Where they'll track us down. No, we stay. We fight. And if... Thomas's voice caught. He looked at Danny. Son, come here. Danny crossed to his father. Thomas gripped his shoulder hard. You're 14. Nearly a man. If things go bad tonight, if they get past me, you take your sister and you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. There's a homestead about 5 miles northwest. Man named Jacob Morrow. I met him in town once. Good man. Quiet. You get there, you ask for help. Understand? Pa, I can fight. You can run. That's what you can do. Promise me, Daniel. Promise me you'll save your sister. Danny looked into his father's eyes and saw the truth there. His father didn't expect to survive the night. This was goodbye, dressed up as instruction. I promise, Danny whispered. Thomas pulled him close, fierce. You're a good son, the best son a man could ask for. Remember that. Then he released Danny and moved to the window, shotgun ready, watching the darkness for the return of men who'd come to steal everything. They came 2 hours later. Danny had been dozing in his chair when he heard the horses. 5 riders moving slowly up the path to their cabin. No attempt at stealth. They knew the Fletchers had nowhere to run. Thomas stood from his position by the window. "Martha, take the children to the root cellar." "Tom, please, just this once, don't argue, please." Martha's face crumpled, but she nodded. "Come on, babies. Come with Mama." "No." Danny stood. "I'm staying with Pa." "Daniel." "I'm staying." Thomas looked at his son for a long moment. Then incredibly he smiled. "Stubborn. Just like your mother." "All right. But Sally goes with your ma. And if I tell you to run, you run. Deal." "Deal." Martha took Sally toward the back of the cabin. Sally was crying, calling for Danny, but Martha kept moving. The root cellar door opened-closed. They were hidden. Father and son stood together at the window. The riders stopped 20 yards from the cabin. In the moonlight, Danny could see them clearly. 5 men. The leader, Ravenna it had to be, sat his horse with easy confidence. The others looked harder, meaner. The kind of men who'd done violence before and would do it again without hesitation. "Fletcher," Ravenna called out. "Last chance. Come out, sign the papers, take the money." Thomas opened the door, stepped onto the porch. The shotgun was in his hands but pointed down. Danny followed, staying close. "Or what?" Thomas asked. "You'll burn us out, kill us for what some railroad tycoon's greed." "For business." Ravenna dismounted, walked closer. "Nothing personal, Mr. Fletcher. Thurston Blackwell needs this land for the new rail line. Silver in those hills, fortunes to be made. You're just in the way." "Then I'll die in the way, but I won't move." Ravenna sighed. "I respect that. I do. But respect doesn't change facts. You're one man with an old shotgun. We're 5 men who do this for a living. How do you think this ends? With you in hell and me in heaven, I reckon." Ravenna actually smiled at that. "Maybe. But your children, where do they end up when you're dead and your wife is a widow?" Thomas's finger moved to the trigger. "Don't you dare." The gunshot came from the right, not from Ravenna, but from one of his men. Thomas jerked backward, a red stain blooming across his chest. "No!" Danny lunged for his father, but Thomas was already falling. The shotgun clattered on the porch boards. Martha burst from the cabin screaming, "Tom! Tom!" The second shot caught her before she reached her husband. She fell across his body, their blood mixing on the wooden porch. Danny couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he'd just seen. His parents, his mother and father, shot down like animals. Dead. Gone. Just gone. "Burn it," Ravenna said, his voice flat. "Make sure there's nothing left to dispute." One of the men dismounted, pulling a torch from his saddlebag. Danny watched him light it, watched the flame catch and grow still, unable to move, unable to think beyond the sight of his parents' bodies. Sally's scream cut through his paralysis. She'd come out of the root cellar, was standing in the doorway staring at Mama and Pa, her mouth open in a wail that seemed to come from somewhere deep in the earth. "Well, well," one of Ravenna's men said. "Missed some. Boss?" Ravenna looked at Sally, looked at Danny. "Can't leave witnesses." The man with the torch moved toward Sally. Something inside Danny snapped. He grabbed his father's shotgun, raised it, pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked him down. The shot went wild, missing everyone, but it bought a second. "Sally, run!" He fired the second barrel, then dropped the gun and ran for his sister. Grabbed her hand. Dragged her past their parents' bodies. "Don't look, don't look, don't look." And around the side of the cabin. Behind them, men shouting, horses thundering. The crackle of flames as their home began to burn. Danny ran. One of Ravenna's men cut them off at the corral. Big man bearded with a hatchet in his belt. He dismounted, grinning. "Where you think you are going, boy?" Danny shoved Sally behind him. "Let us go. We're just kids. We don't matter." "You're witnesses. You matter plenty." The man pulled the hatchet. Danny grabbed a piece of firewood from the pile near the barn, swung it with all his strength. The man knocked it aside easily, laughed, and brought the hatchet down. Danny threw up his left arm to block, felt the blade bite deep into his forearm all the way to bone. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming. He screamed, stumbled backward. The man raised the hatchet for a killing blow. A gunshot cracked. The man jerked, clutched his side, went down to one knee. Danny didn't wait to see who'd shot him. He grabbed Sally with his good arm and ran toward the darkness of the cottonwood grove. "Get them!" Ravenna's voice behind them. "They can't have gone far." But Danny knew these woods. He'd played in them his whole life. He dragged Sally through familiar paths, his left arm screaming agony with every movement, blood running down to drip from his fingers. They could hear the men behind them, crashing through brush, cursing, calling to each other, getting closer. "Danny, I can't," Sally sobbed. "I can't run anymore." "You have to. Just a little further. Pa said there's a man, Jacob Morrow, northwest. We find him, we're safe." "But Pa and Mama..." "Don't." Danny's voice broke. "Don't think about it. Just run." They burst out of the grove, and there it was, a cabin lamplight in the window, smoke from the chimney. Salvation, maybe, if God hadn't abandoned them entirely tonight. Danny's legs gave out on the porch steps. He felt his chest hit wood, felt something crack inside, tasted blood. Sally was screaming his name, but he couldn't answer, couldn't do anything except drag himself up and pound on that door with his one good arm. "Please, please, someone." The door opened. A man looked down at him, tall, scarred, eyes that had seen hell and survived it. "If they come..." Danny gasped through blood and pain and the knowledge that he was seconds from passing out. "Hide my sister." The man's eyes went to the woods behind them. Danny followed his gaze, saw torchlight moving through the trees. Close. Too close. The man made a decision. He bent, scooped Danny up like he weighed nothing, grabbed Sally with his other arm. "Inside. Now." The last thing Danny saw before darkness took him was the man setting him on a bed, then turning back to the door. The rifle that had been leaning against the wall was now in the man's hands. And his face had changed from weary resignation to something hard and purposeful and absolutely terrifying. "How many?" the man asked Sally, his voice calm. "5?" Sally stammered. "5 men. They killed Mama and Pa." "I know, little one. I know. And I'm sorry. But right now, I need you to hide under that bed and stay quiet no matter what you hear. Can you do that?" Sally nodded, crawled under the bed. The man moved to the window, looked out at the approaching torches. Danny, fading in and out of consciousness, heard him mutter something under his breath. 3 years. 3 years of peace. And here we go again. Then, louder to himself or to God or to whoever was listening. "Jacob Morrow, you swore you'd never kill again. You swore." A pause. The sound of him checking the rifle, loading it with steady hands. But some vows aren't worth keeping when children need protecting. The torches were at the edge of the clearing now. Danny could hear voices calling to each other, coordinating. They'd found the cabin. They knew Danny and Sally were inside. Jacob Morrow stood by the window, rifle ready, and waited for hell to knock on his door. It didn't take long. "Hello, the house," Ravenna's cultured voice called out. "We know you've got the Fletcher children in there. This doesn't concern you, friend. Send them out and we'll be on our way. No trouble for you." Jacob said nothing. Just stood there, rifle pointed at the door, his face carved from stone. "I'm trying to be reasonable," Ravenna continued. "Those children are witnesses to a legal eviction that went unfortunate. We need to speak with them. Clarify some things. After that, they're free to go." Still silence from Jacob. "All right, let's try honesty. We're going to kill those children. That's the situation. You have 2 choices, give them up and live, or keep them and die with them. I'm a betting man, and I'm betting you choose life. Most men do." Jacob moved then. Opened the door, stepped onto the porch. Danny tried to call out a warning. "Don't go out there. They'll shoot you," but his voice wouldn't work. The 5 riders sat their horses 30 yards away, torches throwing wild shadows. Ravenna in the center, flanked by his killers. Jacob stood on his porch rifle loose in his hands, but ready. He was a big man, but next to 5 mounted men with guns, he looked impossibly small. "Name's Jacob Morrow," he said, his voice carrying across the distance. "This is my land, my home. Those children are under my protection, so no, you can't have them." Ravenna tilted his head, studying Jacob like an interesting specimen. "Your protection. Bold claim. You know who I am. I know what you are, murderer, child killer, the kind of man who burns families in their homes for money. Business, Mr. Morrow, just business, nothing personal. You made it personal when you murdered those children's parents. You made it personal when you chased them through the night like animals. And you made it damn personal when you came to my door demanding I give up children to killers." One of Ravenna's men, a younger one, nervous, called out, "Boss, maybe we should—" "Shut up, Tommy." Ravenna never took his eyes off Jacob. "Mr. Morrow, I'm trying to determine something. Are you brave or stupid?" "Neither. I'm tired." "Tired?" "Tired of men like you. Tired of evil walking around in daylight pretending to be business. Tired of watching good people die because rich men want more. Just tired." Jacob shifted his stance, and every one of Ravenna's men tensed, but he didn't raise the rifle. Not yet. "So here's how this is going to go," Jacob said. "You're going to turn your horses around. You're going to ride back to whoever hired you. And you're going to tell them the Fletcher children are under my protection, and if anyone comes for them again, I'll kill them. Not because I want to, but because I will." "You'll kill them?" Ravenna smiled. "One man, against an organization that can send 100 men if needed. Then send 100. I'll kill them too, or die trying. Either way, those children stay safe." "Why?" Ravenna leaned forward in his saddle, genuinely curious. "Why die for strangers?" Jacob was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, but no less certain. "Because somebody has to. Because I've stood by before and watched innocent people die, and I won't do it again. Because those children knocked on my door asking for help, and I'll be damned if I turn them away. That answer enough for you?" Ravenna studied him. Then slowly, incredibly, he smiled. "You're a soldier. I can tell. Which war? Does it matter? Union or Confederate Bitin? Union. Cavalry scout. Antietam, Gettysburg, Sherman's march. Then you know how this ends. You've seen it before. One man, no matter how brave, can't stand against 5. You'll die tonight. Those children will die. And tomorrow someone else will move on to the Fletcher land, and none of this will matter." "Maybe." Jacob finally raised the rifle, aimed it at Ravenna's chest. "But I'll die knowing I stood. Will you die knowing you murdered children for a railroad?" The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Then Ravenna laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "I like you, Jacob Morrow. Under different circumstances, we might have been friends. But circumstances are what they are." He turned his horse. "Gentlemen, I think we need to reconsider our approach. Mr. Morrow needs time to think about his situation. Let's give him until dawn. Maybe by then, common sense will prevail." The 5 riders withdrew into the darkness, their torches disappearing into the trees. Jacob stood on his porch rifle, ready, and waited. Inside, Danny finally lost consciousness completely. His last thought a prayer that the man who'd taken them in would survive until morning. Because dawn was coming. And when it came, blood would follow. Jacob closed the door and turned to find Sally crawling out from under the bed. "Is he gone?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "For now." Jacob moved to Danny, checked his pulse. Steady but weak. Too much blood loss. He grabbed his medical kit from the shelf leather pouch he'd kept from the war, filled with needles and thread and whiskey that burned wounds clean. "Your brother's hurt bad. I need to work on him, and it's going to be loud. He'll scream. Can you handle that?" Sally nodded, clutching her doll tighter. "Mama Ruth will help me be brave." "Mama Ruth?" She held up the cornhusk doll. "Named her after Mama, so I don't forget." Something cracked inside Jacob's chest. He turned away fast, busied himself with the medical supplies. "That's good. That's real good, Sally. Now I need you to boil water. Can you do that? Pots on the stove pumps outside. Fill it halfway. But they're out there. They won't shoot a child fetching water. Ravenna's got rules twisted as they are. He'll wait until dawn to kill us proper. Now go." Sally went. Jacob worked fast, cutting away Danny's shirt. The hatchet wound was deep, had cut through muscle damn near to bone. Without proper doctoring, the boy would lose the arm, maybe his life. Jacob threaded the needle, poured whiskey over the wound. Danny's eyes snapped open, and he screamed raw animal sound of agony. "I know, son. I know it hurts. But I've got to close it or you'll bleed out. Can you bite down on this?" Jacob offered his leather belt. Danny took it, bit hard. Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't scream again as Jacob started stitching. 37 stitches total. Jacob counted each one, same as he'd done in field hospitals during the war. Counting kept his hands steady when the wounded boys cried for their mothers. Sally returned with water, set it to boil. She climbed onto the bed next to her brother, took his hand. "I'm here, Danny. I'm right here." "Sal." Danny gasped around the belt. "Mama, Pa." "Don't talk," Jacob said. "Save your strength." But Danny wouldn't stop. They shot them. Just shot them like they were nothing. Pa didn't even get his gun up. Mama tried to... His voice broke completely. Sally started crying. Not loud, but quiet tears that somehow hurt worse to hear. Jacob finished the last stitch, bandaged the arm tight. "Listen to me, both of you. What happened to your parents, there's no words that'll make that right. No comfort I can give that'll touch that kind of pain. But they sent you to me. Your pa told you to run here, didn't he?" Danny nodded. "Then he trusted me to keep you safe. And I will. That's a promise. Those men out there, they'll have to go through me to get to you. And I don't die easy." "Why?" Danny's eyes were feverish, confused. "Why would you do this? You don't even know us." Jacob looked at the boy, 14 years old. Parents murdered, arm nearly hacked off, and still asking the questions that mattered. Smart kid. Brave kid. "I knew a family once," Jacob said quietly. "During the war. Kansas. Name was Dawson. Jenny Dawson and her 3 children. Raiders came through, Confederate sympathizers looking to burn out Union families. I was scouting nearby, heard the screams. Got there too late. Found them all dead in their cabin." He paused, seeing those bodies again like it was yesterday instead of 15 years ago. "I'd been close enough to save them. If I'd moved faster, been braver, not second-guessed myself, but I didn't. And they died. I swore after that I'd never stand by again. Never let fear make me slow. So when you knocked on my door tonight..." Jacob met Danny's eyes. "I had a choice. Be the man who was too late for the Dawsons, or be the man who stands for the Fletchers. That's why." Sally looked up at him with something like awe. "You're a hero." "No, little one. I'm just a man trying to balance scales that'll never balance." A gunshot cracked outside. The window exploded, inward glass spraying across the floor. Jacob threw himself over the children as another shot followed, then another. "Get under the bed, now!" Sally scrambled beneath it. Jacob grabbed Danny, shoved him after her despite his cry of pain. Then Jacob was moving rifle in hand, returning fire through the broken window into the darkness. He couldn't see targets, just muzzle flashes in the trees. 5 men with 5 rifles, and him in a cabin with 1 rifle and maybe 60 rounds total. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. That's a taste, Morrow, Ravenna called from the darkness. Dawn's still hours away. We've got all night to wear you down. No sleep, no peace, just waiting for you to make a mistake. Jacob didn't answer. He moved to the back window, checked the approach. Nothing yet. Returned to the front, scanned the tree line. One of Ravenna's men was repositioning. Jacob saw the movement, led the target, fired. A scream, then thrashing in the brush. "That's one," Jacob muttered. "You got him." Danny's voice from under the bed, shaky but hopeful. "Hit him. Don't know if he's dead or just hurting. Either way, that's 4 you need to worry about now instead of 5. "Mr. Morrow," Sally's small voice. "Are we going to die tonight?" Jacob wanted to lie. Wanted to tell her everything would be fine. That morning would come and they'd all see sunshine together. But this child had watched her parents murdered. She deserved truth, not comfort. "I don't know, Sally, maybe. But if we do, we'll die fighting. And sometimes that's all a person can do, choose to fight instead of surrender. Your pa understood that. He fought for you tonight. Now I'm fighting for you. And if the time comes, you and your brother will fight for each other. That's how we survive things that should kill us. We fight." "I'm scared." "Me too." "Really?" She sounded surprised. "But you're big and strong and you got a gun." Being scared isn't about being weak, Sally. It's about understanding what you stand to lose. I'm terrified right now. Terrified I'll fail you like I failed the Dawsons. Terrified those men will get past me. But I'm more terrified of not trying. So I use the fear. Let it make me sharp. Keep me alive. You understand? I think so. Another gunshot. This one from a different angle, the north side. Jacob spun, fired back. The shot went wide, but forced the shooter to cover. "They're probing," Jacob said more to himself than the children. "Testing defenses. Looking for blind spots." "What do we do?" Danny had crawled out from under the bed, his good arm reaching for his father's shotgun that Jacob had brought inside. "You stay down and heal. I need you alive and able to move if we have to run." "Run where?" "There's a root cellar beneath this cabin. Tunnel leads out to the creek bed about 30 yards away. Emergency exit. If they breach the cabin, you take Sally through that tunnel, and you run south until you hit the main road. Then you head for Cheyenne and find Marshal Henry Ward. He's a friend. You tell him Jacob Morrow died protecting you, and he'll take care of the rest." "You're planning to die?" Danny's voice went sharp with panic. "I'm planning for every possibility. That's how you survive. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, and stay flexible when everything goes to hell. Now get back under that bed before I throw you under it." Danny obeyed reluctantly. The night crawled forward with vicious slowness. Every sound became potential threat. Every shadow could hide a killer. Jacob moved from window to window, checking approaches, looking for movement in the darkness. Around midnight, Ravenna called out again. "Morrow, let's talk like civilized men." "I'm listening." "You're in an impossible situation. You know it. I know it. Those children know it. But here's what you might not know. I respect what you're doing. Standing for strangers. It's admirable. Foolish, but admirable. Get to your point." "My point is this. What if there was a way everyone walks away from this, you, me, my men, even the children?" Jacob's finger tightened on the trigger. "You murdered their parents. There's no walking away from that." "In a perfect world, no. But this isn't a perfect world. It's Wyoming territory in 1876, where money makes right and violence makes law. The Fletchers had land that Thurston Blackwell needed. They refused to sell. What happened tonight was inevitable. Murder is never inevitable. It's a choice. Semantics. The point is, the children saw something tonight that could cause problems for Mr. Blackwell's business interests. But children are also unreliable witnesses, traumatized, grief-stricken, who'd believe them, especially if they were taken in by a kind stranger who helped them understand that what they saw was actually a tragic accident, a fire. Their parents overcome by smoke, Very sad, but these things happen. Jacob's blood went cold. You want me to make them lie? I want you to help them survive. They testify against Blackwell, they'll have accidents, fall off horses, drown in creeks. Children are fragile. But if they stay quiet, they live. Grow up. Maybe inherit some compensation for their loss. Everyone wins. Except their parents are still dead, and the men who killed them walk free. Their parents are dead regardless, Morrow. Question is whether you want their children joining them. Jacob looked at the bed where Sally and Danny huddled together holding each other. Two children who'd lost everything tonight. Who trusted him to protect them. No deal, Jacob said. These children tell the truth. Whatever comes of it, silence. Then, you're condemning them to death. I'm giving them a chance to live with honor instead of shame. Their parents died standing for what's right. I won't dishonor that by teaching their children to lie for monsters. Then you've chosen, for all of you. Guess I have. More gunfire erupted, sustained this time. Bullets hammered the cabin from 3 sides. Jacob returned fire, moving fast, taking shots when he saw muzzle flashes. His shoulder took a wood splinter from a near miss, opened a shallow cut that bled down his arm. The assault stopped after 2 minutes. Jacob checked his ammunition. 40 rounds left. Not enough for a sustained siege. Danny, he called. Your pa's shotgun. How much ammunition you got? Maybe 10 shells. Pa didn't keep much. 10 shells, 40 rifle rounds, against 4 men with who knew how many bullets. The math wasn't good. Sally crawled out from under the bed. Mr. Morrow, I need to use the privy. Of all the problems Jacob had anticipated tonight, this wasn't one of them. He almost laughed. Chamber pot's in the corner. Use that. But it's not proper. Sally proper went out the window when men started shooting at us. Use the pot. I won't look. She did, embarrassed but practical about it. When she finished, she stayed out sitting on the floor by the bed. Tell me about the war, she said. Now's not the time. Please, I need to think about something besides them lying out there. And Danny's trying to sleep, but he keeps crying. I can hear him. So tell me a story. A war story. One with a happy ending. Jacob checked the window, no movement, then sat down against the wall where he could still see the approaches. You want a war story with a happy ending? Those don't exist. Then tell me one with a brave ending. Jacob considered. All right, there was a battle. Antietam, Maryland, September 1862. Bloodiest single day in American history. I was 22 years old, scared out of my mind, serving as cavalry scout for the Union Army. My job was to find Confederate positions, report back, help our commanders know where to attack. Were you good at it? Good enough to stay alive. Anyway, there was this cornfield. Tall corn late summer, and the Confederates were dug in on the far side. Our infantry needed to cross that field to push them back, but it was a death trap. Every stalk could hide a rifleman. What happened? I volunteered to go in first, alone. Scout the positions. My commanding officer said I was crazy. Maybe I was. But boys were going to die crossing that field blind. I figured better 1 scout than 100 infantrymen. So you went into the cornfield? I went. Crawled on my belly for 2 hours. Found the Confederate positions, counted their numbers, marked their artillery. Then I crawled back. Reported what I'd found. Our commanders used that information to flank the position instead of charging straight in. Saved maybe 50 lives that day. Sally was quiet, processing. That was brave. That was terrified. I shook so hard crawling through that corn I thought the Confederates would hear my teeth rattling. But I did it anyway. That's what brave is, being scared and doing what needs doing regardless. Like tonight. Like tonight. Danny spoke from under the bed. We're the cornfield, aren't we? You're scouting ahead so we have a chance. Smart kid. Too smart for his own good. Something like that. What if you don't make it back this time? Jacob met the boy's eyes, saw the fear there. the desperate need for assurance that couldn't be given honestly. Then you get your sister to Marshal Ward in Cheyenne. You tell him everything that happened tonight. You make sure Ravenna and Blackwell answer for what they did. That's how you honor your parents. Not by dying with them, but by living and making their deaths mean something. I don't want you to die for us. Well, I don't plan on it. I'm stubborn that way. A whistle cut through the night air, sharp, deliberately attention-getting. Jacob moved to the window. One of Ravenna's men stood at the edge of the clearing, arms raised in surrender gesture. Young, maybe 20, with fear written all over his face. "Don't shoot," the kid called. "I ain't armed, I just want to talk." Jacob aimed at center mass. "Talk fast." "My name's Tommy. I didn't sign up for this. Killing homesteaders. Hunting children. I thought we were just running off squatters, not murdering families." "Then walk away." "Can't. Ravenna'll kill me if I desert. But I can help you. I can tell you where everyone's positioned, how much ammunition we got, when we're planning to rush the cabin." "Why would you help me?" "Because I got a little sister back in Nebraska. She's 8 years old. Same age as that little girl in there. And if someone came for her, I'd hope someone would stand, the way you're standing." Jacob studied the kid. Could be a trap. Could be genuine. Hard to tell in darkness and gunfire, and the general chaos of men trying to kill each other. "What's your sister's name?" Jacob asked. "Mary. Mary Catherine. She likes dolls and horses and—" Tommy's voice broke. "And she deserves to grow up. Just like that Fletcher girl deserves to grow up. I can't let Ravenna do this." "How do I know you're not setting me up?" "You don't. But I'm standing here unarmed in your rifle sights instead of shooting at you. That count for anything?" It did. Against his better judgment, it did. "Where's Ravenna positioned?" "North side behind the big cottonwood. Luther's at the barn west approach. Wild Bill's circling south looking for a back way in. And there's one more man named Davis, but he's hit. The shot you took earlier. He's bleeding bad, probably dying." 4 active shooters, including Ravenna. Tommy makes 5 if he was lying. But if he was telling truth, that was one potential ally. "What's the plan?" Jacob asked. "Rush at dawn. Burn you out if we have to. Ravenna says fire makes everyone run eventually." Fire. Jacob hadn't considered that. The cabin was wood, dry, would go up like kindling, and the root cellar tunnel smoke would fill it fast. They'd suffocate trying to escape. "Tommy, you want to help? Here's how you get a message to Marshal Ward in Cheyenne. Tell him Jacob Morrow needs assistance at Willow Creek. Tell him it's the Fletcher family situation. He'll understand. Can you do that? That's a 6-hour ride. Then you better start now." Tommy hesitated. "What about you? What about those kids?" "We'll hold until the marshal arrives." "That's suicide." "That's standing. Now go before Ravenna notices you're talking instead of shooting." Tommy started to leave, then turned back. "Mr. Morrow, I'm sorry. For all of this. For being part of it. Don't apologize to me. Apologize by riding fast and bringing help. Now get." Tommy disappeared into the darkness. 30 seconds later, Jacob heard a horse galloping east toward Cheyenne. Ravenna's voice cut through the night sharp with rage. "Tommy, Tommy! Get back here, you coward!" A gunshot. A scream. Then silence. Jacob's gut went cold. Ravenna had killed his own man. "Well, Morrow," Ravenna called out. "Seems my associate decided to betray me. That's what happens to traitors. But I'm curious, what did he tell you? What lies did he fill your head with?" Jacob said nothing. Silent treatment. "Fair enough. Let me tell you what I told Tommy before I put a bullet in his spine. There's no reinforcements coming. No Marshal Ward, no rescue. Just you, me, and the inevitable." Tommy thought he could change that. He was wrong. And now, he's dead. Sally started crying. Jacob wanted to comfort her, but he couldn't leave the window. Couldn't give Ravenna an opening. "Danny," Jacob said quietly, "your sister needs you." Danny crawled out from under the bed, moved to Sally, wrapped his good arm around her. It's okay, Sal. We're okay. That boy died trying to help us, Sally sobbed. He had a sister, like me, and now he's dead. I know, but he made a choice, a brave choice. That matters. Jacob checked the other windows. Luther at the barn hadn't moved. Wild Bill Southside was repositioning. Jacob saw the silhouette against the moon. That left Ravenna and maybe Davis if he was still breathing. The math was better now. Still bad, but better. Dawn was 3 hours away. Jacob loaded his rifle, checked his revolver, and prepared for the longest 3 hours of his life. Because when dawn came, Ravenna would make his move, and only one side was walking away from Willow Creek alive. The eastern sky showed no hint of light yet. Jacob's shoulder ached where the wood splinter had cut him. He pressed a rag against it, felt the warm, sticky blood, knew it wasn't serious, but every wound mattered in a fight like this. Mr. Morrow. Danny's voice was stronger now, fever-breaking. How many bullets you got left? 38 rifle, 6 in the revolver, 2 more speed loaders. And they got more than us, always do. But ammunition don't mean much if you can't hit what you're aiming at. I was a scout, Danny. I learned to make every shot count. Will you teach me? After this is over? The optimism in that question, after this is over, nearly broke Jacob. This boy still believed they'd see tomorrow. Still had hope despite watching his parents die tonight. Yeah, son, I'll teach you. Teach you to shoot track, survive out here. Teach you everything your pa would have taught you. Sally looked up from where she sat against the wall. You promise. I promise. A lie, maybe. But children needed promises in the dark. Needed something to hold on to when the world was ending. Jacob. Danny used his first name, not Mr. Morrow. Something had shifted between them in these hours of blood and fear. If something happens to you, if they get past you, I won't let them take Sally. I'll use Pa's shotgun. I can do it. I know you can, but it won't come to that. How do you know? Because I've been in worse situations, and I'm still here. Like what? Jacob thought back. Shiloh, April 1862. I was 21 years old, green as grass. Confederate artillery caught our unit in a creek bed at dawn. Shells dropping everywhere. Water running red. I was pinned there for 6 hours. 6 hours of hell. But I crawled out when darkness came. Survived. How? Stayed low. Stayed quiet. Waited for my moment. That's the secret, Danny. Survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being patient and stubborn in equal measure. Gunfire erupted from the south. Wild Bill finally making his move. Jacob spun, returned fire through the back window. The shots came closer. Wild Bill was rushing the cabin. Get under the bed. Both of you. Jacob grabbed his revolver, held the rifle ready. Wild Bill's footsteps pounded on the back porch. The door rattled, locked. A boot slammed against it once, twice. Jacob fired through the door. The rifle shot punched a hole in the wood. Wild Bill screamed, stumbled backward. Jacob worked the bolt, fired again. The screaming stopped. That's 2, Jacob muttered, moving back to the front window. His hands were shaking now. Adrenaline exhaustion, blood loss. He forced them steady. Ravenna's voice came from the darkness, different now. Angry. You're good, Morrow. Better than I expected. But you're running out of ammunition and time. How long can you keep this up? Long as it takes. Brave words from a dead man. Luther, burn it. Jacob's blood went cold. He swung to the west window, just as Luther appeared from the barn, torch in hand, running toward the cabin. Jacob aimed, fired. Missed. Luther kept coming. Jacob worked the bolt, fired again. This shot caught Luther in the leg. The man went down hard, but the torch flew from his hand straight onto the cabin's porch. Flames caught immediately. The dry wood ignited like it had been waiting for fire all along. No, no, no. Jacob grabbed the water bucket Sally had filled earlier, threw it through the broken window onto the flames. It barely made a dent. The fire spread, climbing the porch boards toward the roof. "We have to get out." Danny was up, dragging Sally toward the back door despite his wounded arm. "Not that way, Wild Bill's body is blocking it. The root cellar. Now." Jacob ran to the corner, threw back the rug, yanked open the trap door. "Down, both of you." Sally climbed down the ladder first, then Danny moving slower with his bad arm. Smoke was already filling the cabin, thick and black. Jacob grabbed his rifle, his ammunition pouch followed them down. The root cellar was dark and close. Jacob felt along the wall, found the tunnel entrance barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. "Listen carefully. This tunnel leads to the creek bed. You crawl straight for about a minute, you'll hit fresh air. Then you run south like I told you. Don't stop. Don't look back. Find Marshall Ward." "What about you?" Sally grabbed his hand. "I'm right behind you. But you go first. Go now." "You're lying." Danny's voice was flat. "You're staying to fight." "Danny, you're staying because you think you can slow them down. Give us more time. But if you stay, you die. And we already lost our parents tonight. I won't lose you too." Above them, the cabin groaned. Flames eating through the floorboards, smoke pouring down into the cellar. "You don't have a choice," Jacob said. "Go, or we all die down here from smoke. Move." He shoved Sally into the tunnel. She crawled, crying, but moving. Danny hesitated one more second, his eyes meeting Jacob's in the darkness. "You better come back," Danny said. "I will. Now go." Danny crawled after his sister. Jacob waited until he heard them reach the end of the tunnel, heard their footsteps splashing in the creek bed running south. Safe. Then Jacob climbed back up the ladder into the burning cabin. The heat hit him like a physical blow. Flames covered half the main room, now spreading fast. Through the smoke and fire, Jacob saw a silhouette in the doorway. "Ravenna." "Thought you'd run with the children," Ravenna said, stepping inside. He held a revolver loose in his right hand, confident. "Why stay? To finish this." "Noble. Stupid, but noble." Ravenna moved closer, circling through the flames like they didn't exist. "You know what's interesting, Morrow? I researched you after our first conversation. Jacob Morrow, Union Cavalry Scout. Distinguished service at Antietam, Gettysburg, Cold Harbor. 43 confirmed kills during the war. And then you just stopped. Disappeared into Wyoming territory. Swore off violence. Why? None of your business." "But it is my business. Because I need to understand what kind of man stands alone against 5 killers for children he doesn't know. What kind of man breaks a vow for strangers? The kind who got tired of standing by while evil men win." Ravenna smiled. "We're not so different, you know. Both soldiers, both good at killing. The only difference is I made peace with what I am. You're still fighting it. We're nothing alike. Aren't we? You've killed tonight. Tommy. Wild Bill. How's that different from what I do? I killed to protect. You kill for money. I kill to survive, just like you. We're both just trying to make it through another day in a world that doesn't care whether we live or die." The cabin shuddered. Part of the roof collapsed, sending sparks everywhere. The heat was unbearable now. "Enough talk," Jacob said, raising his rifle. Ravenna raised his revolver at the same instant. They fired simultaneously. Jacob felt the bullet hit his shoulder, left side high. The impact spun him halfway around. His shot went wide, splintered the doorframe behind Ravenna. Ravenna fired again. This shot caught Jacob in the ribs below the lung. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming. Jacob dropped to one knee. "That's the difference between us, Morrow." Ravenna walked closer, gun trained on Jacob's head. "I don't hesitate. Don't second guess. Don't care about honor or righteousness or any of that foolishness. I just do what needs doing." Jacob tried to raise his rifle. His arms wouldn't obey. The wound in his side was bleeding badly. He could feel the warmth spreading across his stomach. "Any last words?" Ravenna asked. Jacob thought of the Dawsons, of Danny and Sally running through the darkness toward safety. Of Tommy dying because he tried to help. Of all the moments in his life that had led to this one. "Yeah," Jacob said. "Behind you." Ravenna laughed. "Oldest trick in the—" The gunshot came from outside the cabin. Ravenna jerked forward, his eyes going wide with shock. He looked down at his chest where blood was blooming dark and red. He turned slowly. In the doorway stood Luther, smoking rifle in his hands. "Why?" Ravenna choked out. Luther's face was hard resolved. "Because I got daughters, 2 little girls 8 and 10 years old. And tonight I watched you murder children's parents. Hunt them like animals. Kill Tommy for having a conscience. And I asked myself, what kind of man am I? What kind of father?" He worked the bolt aimed at Ravenna's heart. "I'm the kind who chooses different. Right here. Right now." He fired. Ravenna went down hard, his revolver clattering across the burning floor. He twitched once, twice, then went still. Luther lowered his rifle, looked at Jacob. "The children. Safe. Tunnel. Creek bed." "Good. That's good." Luther moved forward, grabbed Jacob under the arms. "Come on. Gotta get you out before this whole place comes down." Jacob tried to help, but his legs wouldn't work right. Too much blood loss. Luther dragged him toward the door, through the flames, out onto the porch just as the roof gave way completely behind them. They collapsed in the dirt, 20 feet from the burning cabin. Jacob's breath came in short, painful gasps. The rib wound was bad, maybe mortal. "Why?" Jacob managed to ask. Luther sat back, looking at the fire. "Because I was becoming like him, like Ravenna, telling myself lies about how it was just business, just survival. But tonight, I saw it clear, saw what I'd become." He looked at Jacob. "You stood alone against 5 of us. Didn't even know those children. Just stood because it was right. That's the kind of man I thought I was once, before I let the world make me hard. Your daughters are with my sister in Cheyenne. Haven't seen them in 6 months. Been too ashamed. But after tonight..." Luther's voice broke. "I'm going to the marshal, testifying against Blackwell, taking my punishment. And when I get out, however many years that takes, I'm going to find my girls and spend the rest of my life being the kind of father who'd stand. Like you stood." Jacob's vision was darkening at the edges. "Danny? Sally? Make sure—" "I'll watch over them until the marshal comes. You got my word." "Good. That's good." Jacob's eyes closed. He heard Luther calling his name, felt hands pressing against his wounds, heard the man yelling for help, even though no one was close enough to hear. The darkness took him. He woke to daylight and agony. Someone was carrying him. Strong arms, steady stride. Jacob tried to move, gasped at the pain that movement caused. "Easy now," a familiar voice. "Don't go dying on me after all that." Marshal Henry Ward. Jacob forced his eyes open, saw his old friend's weathered face above him. "Henry." "That's right, got your message. Tommy made it to Cheyenne before he died, told me everything. Rode through the night with 10 deputies. Got here at dawn. The children? Safe. Found them by the creek, scared but alive. Boy's arm is infected, needs proper doctoring, but he'll make it. They both will." Luther. Gave himself up, already confessing everything. Names, dates, how Blackwell's land scheme worked. "We got enough to hang Blackwell twice over." Jacob tried to sit up. The world tilted dangerously. Ravenna. Dead. Luther put 2 bullets in him. Says you were already down when he made his choice. Henry adjusted his grip, kept walking. "Got a wagon waiting. Doc Pritchard's meeting us in Cheyenne. You're hurt bad, Jacob. Real bad. But if anyone's too stubborn to die, it's you. The cabin. Burned to foundation. Nothing left. But we can rebuild. That's easy. Keeping you alive, that's the hard part." They reached the wagon. Henry laid Jacob down in the bed where Sally and Danny were already waiting. Sally threw herself at Jacob, crying. Danny took his good hand, held tight. "You came back," Danny said, his voice breaking. "You promised and you came back." "Always keep my promises," Jacob whispered. Even when it's hard. The wagon started moving. Jacob stared up at the sky, brilliant blue, cloudless. Beautiful. He'd forgotten how beautiful the world could be when you weren't fighting for your life. Mr. Morrow, Sally was still holding his other hand. Are you going to die? Not if I can help it. Because we need you. Danny and me. We got nowhere else to go. Nobody else who... Her voice broke completely. Jacob squeezed her hand weakly. You got me. For as long as I'm breathing. That's a promise too. Henry leaned over the wagon side. Doc says if you make it through the next 3 days, you'll probably survive. It's the fever that'll kill you. The infection. I've survived worse. Name one time. Shiloh, Antietam, Cold Harbor. Take your pick. Henry almost smiled. Fair enough. But this time you're not healing in an army hospital with other soldiers. You're healing with 2 children depending on you. Don't you dare give up on them. Won't. The wagon rolled on toward Cheyenne. Jacob closed his eyes, let the motion rock him. He could hear Danny and Sally talking quietly, planning what they'd do when Jacob healed, where they'd rebuild, what kind of cabin they'd make. They were talking about home, about future, about the 3 of them together. Family. Jacob hadn't had family in 15 years, had convinced himself he didn't need it, didn't deserve it after failing the Dawsons. But these children, these brave, broken children who'd lost everything, they were choosing him, choosing to build something from the ashes of tragedy. The fever hit that night in Doc Pritchard's clinic. Jacob burned with it, thrashing in bed, seeing faces from the past. Jenny Dawson and her children. Tommy with his sister Mary Catherine. Ravenna smiling as he died. The fire consuming everything. Danny and Sally sat by his bed, holding his hands, talking to him, even when he couldn't respond. Telling him stories about their parents, about their life before, about the life they wanted after. You gotta wake up, Danny said on the 3rd night, his voice fierce. You gotta wake up because I need you to teach me how to be strong like Pa was. Like you are. I can't do it alone. And I need you to teach me about rescuing animals, Sally added. Because there's a puppy behind the clinic and he's got a hurt leg and I know you'll help me fix him. You always help broken things. Jacob heard them through the fever, their voices anchoring him to life, when the darkness wanted to pull him under. On the 4th morning the fever broke. Jacob opened his eyes to find Doc Pritchard checking his wounds. The woman, one of the few female doctors in Wyoming territory, nodded with satisfaction. Welcome back, Mr. Morrow. Wasn't sure we'd see those eyes open again. How long? 4 days. You were closer to death than life for most of it. But those children of yours, they wouldn't let you go. Talked to you every hour. Told you stories. Promised you things if you'd just wake up. She smiled. Seems their promises worked. Where? Right outside. Haven't left this hallway except to eat and use the privy. I'll fetch them. She opened the door. Danny and Sally practically fell into the room. They stopped short when they saw Jacob awake, like they didn't quite believe it. Hey! Jacob managed, his voice rough. Sally burst into tears and ran to him. Danny followed, moving, careful of Jacob's injuries. They held him gently, crying, laughing, both talking at once. We thought you were going to die. Fever was so high. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't wake up. Doc said we should prepare ourselves. But I told Danny you promised. Promises matter to you. Jacob let them talk, just holding them as best he could, with bandaged ribs and a shoulder that screamed protest at any movement. These children. His children now, he realized. Not by blood or law yet, but by choice and sacrifice, and the bonds forged in fire. I'm okay, he said when they finally quieted. I'm okay, and I'm not going anywhere. We're family now. The 3 of us. And family doesn't quit. Danny pulled back, his eyes red but determined. Marshal Ward says we can stay with him and his wife until you heal. Then, we're going to rebuild. Make a new cabin, better than before. And it'll have a room for me, Sally added, with a window where I can see the stars. You promised. I did, and we will. Doc Pritchard cleared her throat. Much as I hate to interrupt, there's someone waiting to see you, says it's important. Luther walked in, his hands shackled in front of him, a deputy at his shoulder. He looked older, somehow worn down by guilt and choice. Jacob Morrow, Luther said formally. I come to say my piece while I can. Tomorrow they're taking me to territorial prison. 20 years, maybe more. But before I go, I wanted you to know those children will want for nothing. I testified against Blackwell. All his assets are frozen. The territorial government is setting up a fund for families he hurt. The Fletchers will get compensation. Not enough to replace their parents, but enough to start over. You did good, Luther. Real good. I did what I should have done from the start, but better late than never, I reckon. He looked at Danny and Sally. Your parents were good people. They died standing for what was right. Don't ever forget that. We won't, Danny said quietly. And you. Luther turned back to Jacob. You showed me what courage looks like, not the killing kind, the standing kind. I won't forget it. The deputy led Luther away. They listened to his footsteps fade down the hallway. Will we ever see him again? Sally asked. Maybe, if he serves his time and gets out. But what matters is he made the right choice when it counted. Saved my life. Saved yours. That's worth something. Marshal Ward appeared in the doorway next. Jacob. Children. Got news. Thurston Blackwell is arrested. Charged with 15 counts of fraud, conspiracy to murder and corruption. He'll hang before winter. Good, Danny said fiercely. He should, for what he did to Ma and Pa. Justice will be served, son. I promise you that. And Jacob. Henry pulled up a chair. The territorial governor wants to give you a commendation. Hero of Wyoming Territory. Your stand at Willow Creek is already becoming legend. Don't want a commendation? Too bad. You're getting one. Along with a grant to rebuild your homestead. The territory takes care of its heroes. I'm no hero. Just a man who did what needed doing. That's exactly what a hero is. Henry stood. Rest now. Heal. Those children need you whole. And Jacob, I'm proud of you. The man you were during the war would be proud too. After everyone left, Jacob lay back against the pillows, exhausted, but peaceful. Sally curled up at the foot of his bed, still afraid to let him out of her sight. Danny sat in the chair beside him. Jacob. Danny used his first name again. What happens now? Now we heal. Build a new cabin. Learn to be family. Simple as that. Is it though simple? Ma and Pa are still gone? The cabin's burned. Everything we had is just ash. Yeah, but we're not ash. We survived. And sometimes survival is enough. We build from there. Sally looked up. Will we ever stop hurting missing them? Jacob thought carefully before answering. No. That hurt doesn't go away. But it gets easier to carry. And you don't have to carry it alone. We carry it together. That's what family does. Even new family? Danny asked. Family that's not blood. Especially that kind. Because that's chosen. We chose each other in the middle of hell. That's stronger than blood ever could be. Outside, the Wyoming sun climbed higher, warming the day. Somewhere Luther was beginning his journey to prison and redemption. Somewhere Blackwell was sitting in a cell awaiting the noose. Somewhere the ruins of Jacob's cabin were cooling, ready to be rebuilt into something better. And here in this small clinic room, 3 people who'd found each other in violence and fire were beginning the slow work of becoming whole. Jacob closed his eyes, feeling Sally's hand in his, hearing. Danny's breathing settled into sleep. He'd broken his vow, had killed again, had stood and fought and nearly died. But looking at these children, his children, he knew he'd make the same choice every time. Some vows were meant to be broken. Some fights were worth dying for. And some families were worth everything. Let me write this with strong emotional beats and natural dialogue. Jacob spent 2 more weeks in Doc Pritchard's clinic before she declared him fit enough to leave. Fit enough was different from healed. His shoulder ached in cold weather. His ribs protested every deep breath. But he could walk, could think clearly, could function. That was enough. Marshall Ward's wife Eliza met them at the clinic door with a wagon. She was a handsome woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, practical eyes that had seen hardship and learned compassion from it. "You must be Danny and Sally," she said warmly. "Henry's told me all about you. We've got rooms ready, hot food waiting, and I won't take no for an answer about staying with us until Mr. Morrow's strong enough to rebuild." Sally looked at Jacob, asking permission with her eyes. He nodded. "Go on. Mrs. Ward will take good care of you." "You're coming too, right?" The panic in Sally's voice was immediate. "You're not staying here." "I'm right behind you, promise." But when Jacob tried to climb into the wagon, his ribs seized. He stumbled, caught himself on the wheel. Danny was there instantly, supporting him with his good arm. "Easy. I got you." "Roles reversed," Jacob said, managing a weak smile. "You holding me up now?" "That's what family does, right? Take turns holding each other up." They made it to the Ward house, a solid 2-story structure on Cheyenne's main street. Eliza had prepared rooms upstairs for the children, a room downstairs for Jacob, since he couldn't manage stairs yet. That first night, Sally refused to sleep in her room. She dragged her blankets down to Jacob's floor, made a pallet beside his bed. "I need to see you breathing," she said when Eliza protested. "Need to know you're still here." Jacob understood. He'd seen soldiers do the same after battles, sleeping close to their brothers in arms, needing that physical proof of survival. "It's all right," he told Eliza. "Let her stay." Danny appeared in the doorway 10 minutes later, his own blanket in hand. "If Sally's staying, I'm staying." So the 3 of them slept in that small room, Jacob in the bed, the children on the floor beside him. Not proper by any measure, but proper had burned with the cabin. This was survival, the messy, necessary kind. Morning came with sunlight and Eliza's gentle wake-up call. "Breakfast's ready, and Henry needs to speak with you, Jacob. Says it's important." Jacob found Marshall Ward in the dining room, his expression serious. The children sat at the table eating eggs and bread, but they stopped when they saw Ward's face. "What's wrong?" Jacob asked. "Got a situation. Man arrived this morning from Philadelphia. Says he's Thomas Fletcher's father, claims legal right to the children." Danny's fork clattered to his plate. "Grandfather? You knew about him?" Jacob asked. "Pa mentioned him once. Said they hadn't spoken in 20 years. Said grandfather was a hard man who valued money over people. Pa left Philadelphia because of it." Ward nodded. "That matches what this gentleman says. His name's Josiah Fletcher. He's staying at the hotel. Wants to meet the children today. Take them back east." "No." Sally's voice was small but absolute. "We're staying with Jacob." "It's not that simple, sweetheart. He's blood family. Has legal standing." "I don't care about legal standing." Danny stood his chair, scraping backward. "Our parents are dead. Our home is burned. Jacob's the only family we got left. You can't take us from him." Ward held up his hands. "Nobody's taking anyone anywhere without a hearing. But you need to meet him. Give him a chance to..." "To what? Pretend he cares now that Pa's dead. Where was he when Pa needed help building the homestead? Where was he when Blackwell's men came? Where was he when we were running for our lives?" "Danny!" Jacob's voice cut through the boy's anger. "Sit down." Danny sat, but his jaw was set, his eyes blazing. "Marshall Ward's right. You need to meet him, hear what he has to say. Then we'll figure out the next step together. But running from this won't work. We face it head on." "What if he takes us away?" Sally's voice broke. "What if the law says we have to go? Then we'll fight it. Proper channels, legal means, but we'll fight." The meeting was set for that afternoon at the marshal's office. Josiah Fletcher arrived precisely on time, a tall man in his 60s, silver hair, expensive suit that looked ridiculous in Wyoming territory. His face was carved from granite, his eyes sharp and assessing. He looked at Danny and Sally with an expression Jacob couldn't quite read. Pain, maybe. Or regret. Daniel. Sarah. His voice was formal, controlled. You look like your father. Our names are Danny and Sally, Danny said flatly. And we didn't know we had a grandfather. Your father and I had disagreements. He left Philadelphia. I let him go. That was my mistake. Yeah, it was. Josiah's jaw tightened. I understand you're angry. You have every right. But I'm here now. To make amends. To offer you a future your father couldn't provide. Pa provided just fine until Blackwell's men murdered him. I'm aware of what happened. Marshal Ward explained the situation. And I'm prepared to fund full prosecution of everyone involved, the best lawyers money can buy. We don't need your money, Sally said. We got Jacob. Josiah looked at Jacob for the first time. Mr. Morrow, I've heard about your actions. Very heroic. The children are fortunate you were there. But surely you understand they need more than one man's protection. They need education opportunities, a stable home. They have a home. With me. In a burned-out homestead in the middle of nowhere. What kind of life is that for children? The kind where they're loved and safe and free to be themselves. The kind their parents wanted for them. Their parents are dead. Josiah's voice went cold. And while I appreciate your sentiments, Mr. Morrow's sentiment doesn't raise children. Money does. Stability does. I'm offering them the finest schools in Philadelphia, social connections, a future. We don't want your future, Danny said. We want our pa and ma back. Since we can't have that, we want Jacob. You're 14 years old. You don't know what you want. I know I don't want you. The words hung in the air like gunshots. Josiah's face went hard, then crumpled slightly. For a moment he looked old and broken. I deserve that, he said quietly. I do. But Danny, I'm trying. I failed your father. Let me not fail you too. Then respect what we want. We want to stay with Jacob. Josiah turned to Marshal Ward. What's the legal situation? Complex. Mr. Morrow has no formal guardianship papers. You have blood rights. But the children's wishes matter given their ages. A judge would likely consider their preference. Then we go before a judge, settle this properly. The hearing was set for 3 days later. Those 3 days were the longest of Jacob's life. He watched Danny and Sally grow quieter, more withdrawn. Watched them cling to him like he might disappear. Watched their new family barely formed threaten to shatter before it even solidified. The night before the hearing, Danny couldn't sleep. Jacob found him on the porch, staring at the stars. You worried? Jacob asked. Terrified. What if the judge sides with grandfather? What if they take us away and we never see you again? Won't happen. How do you know? Because I'll fight it. Every legal means available. And if legal means fail, Jacob stopped himself. What, you'll run with us? Become outlaws? I didn't say that. But you thought it. Danny looked at him. You'd do that? Risk everything. For you and Sally? Yeah, I would. That's crazy. That's family. Danny was quiet for a long moment. Pa used to say family meant standing together even when the world said otherwise. Guess you and him would have been friends. I think we would have. The courthouse was packed the next morning. News of the hearing had spread through Cheyenne, the orphaned children, the heroic stand, the grandfather from Philadelphia. Everyone wanted to see how it ended. Judge Marion Blackthorne presided, a woman in her 50s who'd made her name defending homesteaders' rights. She looked stern as she called the hearing to order. This is an unusual case, she began. Two children orphaned by violence. A grandfather claiming blood rights. A stranger claiming earned rights. I'll hear from all parties, then make my ruling. Josiah's lawyer spoke first, slick Easterner, who painted a picture of wealth and opportunity. Schools and tutors. Social standing. Everything money could buy. Then Marshal Ward spoke for Jacob. Your Honor, Jacob Morrow stood alone against 5 killers to protect these children. Was wounded nearly to death. He's given them a home, shown them love, asked nothing in return. That's not a stranger, that's a father. But not a legal father, the lawyer interjected. Not family, just a man who happened to be in the right place. Or the wrong place, depending how you look at it, Ward shot back. Most men would have turned those children away. He didn't. That says something about character. Judge Blackthorne turned to Danny and Sally. I'd like to hear from the children themselves. Daniel, Sarah, please approach. They walked to the front holding hands. Sally clutched Mama Ruth to her chest. Danny stood straight, trying to look older than 14. Daniel, the judge said gently, I understand your grandfather wants to take you to Philadelphia, give you opportunities. What do you think about that? I think he's 20 years too late. That's harsh. It's honest. Pa left Philadelphia because grandfather valued business over family. Now Pa's dead and suddenly grandfather cares. That's not love. That's guilt. Josiah flinched, but said nothing. And what about Mr. Morrow? The judge asked. Jacob saved our lives. Not just from Ravenna from giving up. When Ma and Pa died, I wanted to die too. But Jacob showed us how to keep living. How to stand when everything hurts. That's real family. Sarah. What do you want? Sally's voice was small but clear. I want Jacob. He promised to teach me about stars and animals and how to be brave like Mama was. Grandfather's nice, but he's a stranger. Jacob's home. Judge Blackthorne leaned back, studying all 3 of them. Mr. Fletcher, I'd like to hear from you directly. Josiah stood. Your Honor. I won't lie and say I've been a good grandfather. I wasn't. I let pride destroy my relationship with my son. But Tom, he was a good man. Better than me. And these children are all I have left of him. I want to give them everything he couldn't. Not to replace him, but to honor him. Noble sentiment. But what do you know about raising children who've experienced trauma, who've watched their parents murdered, who've had to fight for survival? I'll hire the best counselors. Money again. Mr. Fletcher, let me ask you something. If these children choose Mr. Morrow, will you walk away peacefully? Josiah looked at Danny and Sally for a long moment. No. I'll visit. Stay in the area. Be part of their lives however they'll let me. But I won't fight them. Not anymore. I fought my son and lost him. I won't make that mistake twice. The judge nodded. Mr. Morrow, approach, please. Jacob stood, his ribs protesting, his shoulder aching. He walked to the front with as much dignity as his wounds allowed. Mr. Morrow, you understand the responsibility you're taking on raising 2 traumatized children alone. I do. You have means to support them. I have land, skills. The territory's offering compensation for Blackwell's victims. We'll manage. And if Mr. Fletcher wants to be involved in their lives, can you accept that? Jacob looked at Josiah, saw a broken man trying to fix unfixable mistakes, saw something of himself in those regretful eyes. If the children want it, yes. They've lost enough. Don't need to lose more family because adults can't get along. Judge Blackthorne smiled slightly. That's the wisest thing I've heard all morning. Very well. My ruling is as follows. Temporary guardianship is granted to Jacob Morrow with formal adoption proceedings to begin immediately, Mr. Josiah Fletcher is granted visitation rights to be exercised at the children's discretion. This family will be built on choice, not obligation. Does everyone understand? Yes, Your Honor, came the chorus of voices. Then we're adjourned. The courthouse erupted in applause. Sally threw herself at Jacob, crying with relief. Danny grabbed them both in a fierce hug despite his bad arm. Josiah approached slowly. "Thank you," he said to Jacob, "for giving me a chance to know them." "Don't thank me. Thank them. They're the ones choosing to let you in." "I know." Josiah looked at his grandchildren. "Danny, Sally, I'd like to help rebuild your cabin, if you'll let me. I'm not much for manual labor, but I can hammer a nail. And I'd like to hear stories about your father. Learn who he became after he left me." Danny looked at Sally. She nodded. "All right, you can help. But don't think that makes you family. You earn that." Fair enough. They left the courthouse together, an unlikely group bound by tragedy and choice. Eliza Ward insisted on celebrating with dinner at the house. Josiah paid for the finest meal the hotel could provide, delivered to the Ward home in style. That night, Jacob lay in bed, Danny and Sally once again on the floor beside him. But this time, Sally wasn't there because she feared he'd die. She was there because home was wherever the three of them were together. "Jacob." Danny's voice in the darkness. "Yeah. Thank you for fighting for us." "Always will, son. That's what I'm here for. Do you think Ma and Pa would approve of us being with you?" Jacob thought about Thomas Fletcher, who'd sent his dying son to a stranger's door, who'd trusted Jacob with his children's lives based on one meeting in town. "Yeah, I think they would. I think your pa knew what he was doing when he sent you to me. Knew I'd stand. Knew I'd care. So yeah, I think they'd approve." "Good. That's good." Danny was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something else? Anything? Will you teach me to fight like you fought Ravenna? I don't want to be helpless again. Don't want to watch people I love die because I'm too weak to protect them." Fighting's not about strength, Danny. It's about choosing when to fight and when to walk away. But yeah, I'll teach you. Everything I know. Promise. Promise. Sally's voice came sleepy from her blankets. "And you'll teach me about horses, and reading stars, and taking care of herd animals. All of it, every last bit. Then we're really going to be okay, aren't we?" Jacob thought about everything they'd survived, everything still ahead, the new cabin to build, the memories to process, the long road of healing. "Yeah, sweetheart, we're going to be okay." The next morning, Marshal Ward brought news. "Blackwell hanged yesterday. Last words were an apology to all the families he destroyed. For what that's worth. Justice served," Jacob said. "Now we can focus on living." But that afternoon, a rider came from the territorial capital. Young man official looking with papers, stamped with the governor's seal. "Jacob Morrow." "That's me." "The governor requests your presence in Helena. Wants to honor you for your actions at Willow Creek. Ceremony in 2 weeks." "Not interested." "Sir, the governor specifically said you might refuse. Asked me to tell you it's not about you. It's about showing other men what courage looks like, about giving hope to homesteaders who've been terrorized by men like Blackwell. You stood, and it changed things. People need to see that." Jacob looked at Danny and Sally. They looked back at him with pride in their eyes. "Will they come with me?" The children. "Of course. The governor wants to meet them too." "Then I'll go." The 2 weeks passed in preparation. They bought new clothes, proper ones for the ceremony. Josiah insisted on paying, and this time Jacob let him. The old man was trying showing up every day to help plan the new cabin to spend time with Danny and Sally. It was awkward. Josiah didn't know how to talk to children, didn't know what they liked or feared or needed, but he kept showing up. That counted for something. The night before they left for Helena, Danny found Jacob in the barn checking tack for the journey. "You nervous about the ceremony?" "Terrified. Don't like speeches. Don't like attention." "Then why go?" "Because that rider was right. It's not about me. It's about showing people that standing matters. That one person can make a difference. You made a difference to us. and that's enough. But if going to Helena means other men find courage to stand for their families, then I'll go. I'll wear the uncomfortable suit and accept the medal and say the right words, because it matters." Danny smiled. Pa would have done the same. He hated attention too, but he always did what needed doing. "Then I'm walking in good footsteps." They left for Helena at dawn, Jacob, Danny, Sally, and Marshall Ward as escort. Josiah stayed behind to oversee lumber delivery for the new cabin, promising to have materials ready when they returned. The journey took 3 days. At night, they camped under stars that seemed close enough to touch. Sally pointed out constellations, making up stories about each one. Danny practiced with his knife, his left arm finally healing enough for proper use. And Jacob watched them, these children who'd become his whole world in the span of a few violent hours, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, not the erasure of memory, but the quiet certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Helena waited ahead. The ceremony, the attention, the official recognition of one man's desperate stand against evil. But the real honor was here in this camp with these children sleeping safely, while Jacob kept watch. That was the only recognition that mattered. The rest was just details. Helena rose before them on the 4th morning territorial capital, sprawling across the valley, bigger than anything Danny or Sally had seen before. Sally pressed close to Jacob as they rode down the main street, overwhelmed by the crowds and noise. "It's too many people," she whispered. "I know, but we stick together, won't let anything happen to you." The governor's mansion stood at the end of the street, imposing and official. A man in a fine suit met them at the door, the governor's secretary. "Mr. Morrow, the governor's been expecting you. The ceremony is tomorrow at noon. He'd like to meet with you privately this evening." "Fine, but the children stay with me." "Of course. We've arranged rooms at the hotel." "One room. We don't separate." The secretary looked like he wanted to argue, then saw Jacob's face and thought better of it. "One room. I'll make arrangements." That evening, Governor Benjamin Potts received them in his study. He was younger than Jacob expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a politician's easy smile. "Mr. Morrow, I've read Marshall Ward's report. Remarkable story. You stood alone against 5 killers." "I had help. Luther Boone made the choice that mattered." "Nevertheless, your actions broke open Blackwell's operation. 23 families will get their land back. That's significant." "Sir, if you don't mind, why am I here? I did what needed doing. Don't need a medal for it." Potts leaned forward. "Because Wyoming territory is changing. We're applying for statehood. That means showing we're civilized, that law matters here. Your stand at Willow Creek is exactly the story we need. The lone defender protecting innocence. Justice prevailing over corruption. It's perfect." Jacob felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You want to use us. For politics. I want to honor you. And yes, show the nation that Wyoming territory is ready for statehood. Both things can be true. The children have been through hell. I won't parade them around like trophies. I'm not asking you to. Just accept the medal. Say a few words. Let people see that courage exists here. That families matter. Is that too much to ask?" Jacob looked at Danny and Sally. They looked back, waiting for his decision. "What do you two think?" Danny considered. "If it helps other families like ours, then yeah. We should do it." Sally: "Will there be food after good food?" Despite everything, Jacob almost laughed. "Yeah, sweetheart, I imagine there will be." "Then okay." The ceremony the next day drew hundreds. The territorial square was packed with homesteaders, businessmen, politicians, families. Jacob stood on a platform, wearing the uncomfortable new suit, feeling every eye on him. Governor Potts gave a speech about courage and frontier spirit, about how one man's stand had changed the territory, about how Jacob Morrow represented the best of Wyoming's future. Jacob barely heard it. He was watching the crowd old instincts from the war making him scan for threats, and he found one. At the edge of the square stood a man in a dark suit. Familiar somehow. It took Jacob a moment to place him, then it hit. The man had been at Blackwell's trial, had sat with Blackwell's lawyers, and now he was staring at Danny and Sally with cold calculation. Jacob stepped forward when the governor finished, accepted the bronze medal, started the speech he'd rehearsed, but he kept the man in his peripheral vision. "I didn't do anything special," Jacob said, his voice carrying across the square. "I just did what any decent man would do. 2 children needed help. I helped, that's all. But these children," Governor Potts gestured to Danny and Sally, "they represent something important. They're survivors, proof that good can triumph over evil." The man in the dark suit moved closer to the platform. Jacob's hand drifted toward where his revolver would be if he was wearing it, but he'd left it at the hotel. Stupid, complacent. "And now," the governor continued, "Mr. Morrow is adopting Daniel and Sarah Fletcher, giving them a new home, a new future. Objection." The man's voice cut through the celebration. "I represent the Blackwell estate, and I have legal documents showing Thomas Fletcher owed money to my client. That debt transfers to his heirs." The crowd went silent. Jacob stepped between the man and the children. "Blackwell's dead, hanged for murder. His business interests survive. The debt is real, $1,700. And until it's paid, I'm authorized to seize any Fletcher assets, including mineral rights to their land, their children. You can't." "I can and will. Unless." The man smiled. "Unless someone pays the debt on their behalf." Jacob understood then. This wasn't about money. This was revenge. Blackwell's associates trying to hurt the children one last way before the estate was fully dissolved. "How do I know this debt is real?" Jacob demanded. "It's documented, certified, legal." Governor Potts stepped forward. "I'll need to see these documents, and if they're legitimate, the territorial government will pay the debt. We don't punish orphans for their parents' obligations." "With respect, Governor, the law is clear. The debt must be paid by family, blood family or legal guardian. And Mr. Morrow isn't legally anything yet. The adoption hasn't been finalized." The crowd was murmuring now. Jacob felt Danny and Sally move closer, pressing against his back. "How much time do I have?" Jacob asked. 30 days. Then we seize the land." Marshal Ward pushed through the crowd. "This is harassment. Your client was convicted of murdering the Fletchers. You can't profit from that crime." "I'm not profiting. I'm collecting a legitimate debt incurred before any criminal activity, completely separate legal matter." "It's extortion," Jacob said flatly. "It's business. 30 days, Mr. Morrow. Find $1,700 or the Fletcher children lose their inheritance." The man walked away, leaving chaos in his wake. The ceremony dissolved into arguments and outrage. Governor Potts pulled Jacob aside. "I'll help however I can. Legal support, financial assistance." "No." Jacob's voice was hard. "This is family business. We'll handle it. $1,700 is a fortune. I'm aware. But taking your money means being in your debt, and I don't want the territorial government holding strings on my family." Potts studied him. "You're a proud man, Jacob Morrow. Pride can be expensive. So can compromise. Come on, kids, we're leaving." They rode out of Helena that afternoon. Sally was crying quietly. Danny was silent, his face set in that too adult expression Jacob had come to recognize as the boy processing trauma. Marshal Ward rode with them. There might be a way around this. Legal challenges, appeals. How long would that take? Months, maybe years. We don't have years. We have 30 days. So what's your plan? Jacob looked at the mountains rising to the west. I'm going to earn $1,700 in 30 days. Ward laughed, then stopped when he realized Jacob was serious. How you can't work, you're still healing. And even if you could, that's more money than most men make in 2 years. I'll figure it out. Jacob, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Those children have lost everything. Their parents, their home, their innocence. I won't let them lose their land too. That land is all they have left of their family. So I'll earn the money or die trying. That's not reasonable. That's suicide. Then I'll die for a good cause. They made camp that night by a river. Danny sat apart from the others, staring into the fire. Jacob joined him. You're planning something stupid, Danny said without looking up. What makes you say that? Because I know you now. You get this look when you're about to do something brave and stupid, and probably deadly. Same look you had before you fought Ravenna. I'm not planning anything deadly. You're lying. Whatever you're thinking, don't. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Danny. $1,700 might as well be $17,000. I don't have it. Can't earn it honestly in 30 days. So I'll have to get creative. Creative how? Jacob was quiet for a long moment. There's a man in Denver. Name's Coleman Reed. We served together in the war. He runs a fighting circuit now. Bare-knuckle boxing. High stakes. Winner takes $50 a fight. Danny's eyes went wide. You want to fight? You can barely lift your arm above your shoulder. I can fight well enough. 34 fights in 30 days. That's the math. That's insane. You'll get killed. Maybe. But it's the only option I see. What about grandfather? He has money. He could... I won't take his money. Won't be in his debt. This is my responsibility. I'm their father now. Fathers provide. By getting beaten to death in some Denver fight pit. By doing whatever it takes. Sally appeared out of the darkness. Mama Ruth clutched to her chest. I heard you talking. You're going to fight people for money. Just for a little while. People die in those fights. I heard Marshall Ward talking about it once. Said men bet on fighters, and sometimes the fighters don't come home. Jacob pulled her close. I'll come home. I promise. You can't promise that. Watch me. Marshall Ward tried to talk him out of it. Governor Potts sent a telegram offering territorial funds. Josiah Fletcher rode all the way from Cheyenne to argue. Take my money, Josiah demanded. I have more than enough. Let me help my grandchildren. This isn't about money. It's about proving I can provide for them, that I'm worthy of being their father. You've already proven that you stood against killers, nearly died protecting them. What more do you need to prove? That I can keep them safe in peacetime too, not just during war. That I can be the father they need in all ways, not just the fighter they needed that one night. This is pride talking. This is responsibility talking. Those children trust me. I won't let them down. They arrived in Denver 3 days later. The city was bigger than Helena Rougher, filled with miners and gamblers, and men looking for ways to get rich quick or die trying. Coleman Reed ran his operation out of a warehouse near the river. He was a big man scarred from years of fighting with eyes that had seen everything and been impressed by nothing. Jacob Morrow. Reed grinned when he saw him. Thought the war killed you. Almost did. Need a favor, Coleman. Name it. Need to fight. 34 times in the next month. Need $50 a fight. Reed's grin faded. You're serious. Dead serious. Jacob, I watched you scout at Antietam. You were brilliant. Fast, smart, careful. This is none of those things. This is desperation. It's necessity. Can you arrange it or not? Reed studied him. For anyone else, no. But you saved my life at Cold Harbor. Dragged me off that field when everyone else ran. So yeah, I'll do it. But Jacob, this is going to hurt. Really hurt. And you might not survive it. I'll survive. Why? What's worth dying for? Jacob pulled out the tintype photograph Doc Pritchard had taken before they left Cheyenne. Danny and Sally standing with him, all three of them trying to smile for the camera. Them. Reed looked at the photograph for a long moment. Family. Family. Then God help anyone who gets in your way. The first fight was that night. Jacob stepped into the ring, a roped-off area in the warehouse, sawdust on the floor, betting money changing hands all around. His opponent was a miner named Black Jack, 6'4" and solid muscle. Danny and Sally watched from the sidelines despite Jacob's protests. Marshal Ward had agreed to stay with them while Jacob fought. The man looked sick with worry. The bell rang. Black Jack came out swinging. Jacob dodged, but his shoulder screamed protest. He countered with a jab to the ribs, felt his own ribs protest the movement. This was going to be worse than he thought. Black Jack caught him with a right hook. Jacob's vision sparked. He stumbled, caught himself on the ropes. The crowd roared. "Get up, Jacob!" Danny's voice cut through the noise. "Get up!" Jacob got up. He'd gotten up at Shiloh when cannonballs fell like rain. He'd gotten up at Antietam when Minié balls whistled past his head. He'd gotten up at Willow Creek when bullets tore through his body. He could get up now. Jacob fought smart, dodged more than he punched, let Black Jack tire himself out. Then when the big man was breathing hard, Jacob hit him 3 times fast, ribs, jaw, temple. Black Jack went down. The referee counted. 10. Jacob won. $50. That night, Danny helped Jacob wrap his bruised ribs. "You can't do this 33 more times." "I can and I will." "You'll die." "Then I'll die knowing I provided for you." "I don't want your money if it costs your life." "It's not about what you want, son. It's about what you need. You need that land. That's your inheritance, your parents' legacy. I won't let some lawyer steal it because I wasn't man enough to pay a debt. You're the most man enough person I know. You don't have to prove anything. I'm proving it to myself." The fights came one after another. Some Jacob won easily. Others he barely survived. His body became a map of bruises and cuts. His shoulder got worse despite Doc Pritchard's orders to rest. His ribs cracked again in the 14th fight. But he kept fighting. Sally cried after each fight, begging him to stop. Danny stopped speaking to him, entirely angry and terrified in equal measure. Marshal Ward threatened to arrest him for self-destruction. Jacob kept fighting. Fight 27 almost killed him. His opponent was a professional from San Francisco, fast and mean. He caught Jacob with a combination that dropped him hard. Jacob tasted blood, felt his consciousness slipping. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Sally screaming his name, heard Danny begging him to get up, heard Marshal Ward yelling for the referee to stop the fight. Jacob got up. He didn't know how, didn't know where he found the strength, but he got up and he kept fighting, and somehow, impossibly, he won. Afterward, Danny finally broke his silence. "Why are you doing this to yourself? To us. We have to watch you die a little more every night." "I'm doing this for you." "No, you're doing this for yourself. You're trying to prove you're worthy of being our father. But you already proved that at Willow Creek. This is just suffering for suffering's sake. You don't understand. I understand you're hurting yourself because you think you don't deserve us, unless you can pay $1,700. I understand you're so broken from the war and the Dawsons that you can't accept love without earning it. I understand you're killing yourself because you think that's what fathers do." The words hit harder than any punch. Jacob sat down heavily, his body screaming protest. "Danny, Pa didn't die fighting Ravenna to prove he was worthy of being our father. He died because he already was our father, and fathers protect. You did the same. You stood and nearly died. That's enough. You don't have to earn us. We're already yours." Sally climbed into Jacob's lap despite his injuries. "Please stop fighting. Please. We'll lose the land. That's okay. We'll start over somewhere else. But we can't lose you. Not after losing Ma and Pa. We can't." Jacob held them both, feeling something break inside him. Not his body that had been breaking for weeks. Something deeper. The wall of guilt and unworthiness he'd built after the Dawsons died. The belief that he needed to earn the right to be loved. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "So you'll stop?" Sally asked hopefully. Jacob thought about the debt, about 7 more fights, about $350 still needed, about the lawyer waiting to seize the Fletcher land. Then he thought about these children who'd already lost so much. Who couldn't survive losing him too? Yeah, I'll stop. Marshal Ward appeared at the door. Jacob, there's someone here to see you. Josiah Fletcher walked in, followed by Reed. The old man's face was harder than Jacob had ever seen it. Grandfather. Sally ran to him. You came. I came, because someone sent me a telegram explaining what this fool was doing to himself. Josiah glared at Jacob. Fighting himself to death for $1,700 when I've been begging to give it to him for a month. I can't take your money? Yes, you can. Not for yourself. For them. For my grandchildren. Because watching their new father destroy himself is destroying them. And I won't stand by and watch them lose another parent. I've already lost my son. I won't lose them too. I won't be in your debt. You won't be. This is a gift. From grandfather to grandchildren. Through you. No strings. No obligations. Just family helping family. Can you accept that? Jacob looked at Danny and Sally, saw the hope in their faces, the desperate need for him to say yes. I don't deserve this, Jacob said quietly. Probably not. Josiah agreed. But they deserve a father who's alive, who's whole, who can watch them grow up instead of dying in some fight pit for money. So take it. Not because you want to, because they need you to. Jacob took it. 3 days later, they stood in a lawyer's office in Denver. The man from Blackwell's estate sat across from them, smug and certain he'd won. Jacob placed a banker's draft on the desk. $1,700. Debt paid in full. The smugness evaporated. Where did you? None of your business. The debt is paid. The land is theirs. We're done here. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. And if you or anyone else from Blackwell's organization comes near these children again, you'll answer to me. And I promise you, I'm much better at fighting people who deserve it than random opponents in a ring. We clear. The lawyer gathered his papers and left without another word. Outside, Sally jumped up and down with excitement. We get to keep the land. We get to build the cabin. We do, Jacob agreed. Thanks to your grandfather. Josiah cleared his throat, uncomfortable with gratitude. Just doing what I should have done 20 years ago. Taking care of family. They returned to Cheyenne the next day. The lumber Josiah had ordered was waiting. Over the next month, they built the new cabin bigger than the old one, stronger. Josiah worked alongside them, learning construction from scratch, getting to know his grandchildren through shared labor. The cabin rose from the ashes of the old. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and a loft for Sally, with a window that looked out over the valley. They hung the tintype of Thomas and Martha Fletcher over the fireplace, parents watching over their children's new home. On the night they moved in, Jacob stood on the porch watching the sunset over Wyoming territory. Danny joined him, his left arm fully healed now, strong again. You never told us, Danny said. After the war, after the Dawsons. Why'd you come out here? Why Wyoming? To disappear. To be somewhere nobody knew me. Somewhere I could forget. Did it work? No. You can't outrun guilt. It follows you everywhere. But then you and Sally showed up bleeding on my porch, and I realized something. I wasn't meant to forget. I was meant to remember. To learn from what I failed to do for the Dawsons. So when you needed me, I could stand. You think God put you here waiting for us? I think I stumbled here broken and afraid, and you helped me find what I was looking for without knowing I was looking for it. What's that? Purpose. Family. A reason to stop running. Sally called from inside. Jacob, Danny, supper's ready. They went inside where Josiah had prepared a meal, simple food perfectly cooked. The old man was learning. Growing. Becoming someone his son might have been proud of. They sat around the table, the 4 of them, and Jacob looked at this unlikely family they'd built from tragedy and choice and stubborn refusal to give up. "Before we eat," Josiah said formally, "I'd like to say something. Thomas, my son, he knew what mattered. He chose family over fortune, love over legacy, and he raised you children to understand that. I'm sorry I didn't learn those lessons until it was too late to tell him, but I'm learning now, and I'm grateful you're letting me." "Your family now, grandfather?" Sally said simply. "That's what matters." They ate together as the Wyoming night settled around their cabin. Outside, wolves howled in the distant hills. Inside, four people who'd found each other through blood and fire and choice talked about tomorrow. Marshal Ward stopped by the next morning. "Wanted to tell you in person. The territorial government is establishing the Fletcher Homestead Protection Fund, money from Blackwell's seized assets, going to help families defend against land fraud. They're naming it after Thomas and Martha." "They'd have liked that," Danny said. "And Jacob, Governor Potts wants you to know he's appointing a commission to review territorial land laws, making it harder for men like Blackwell to operate. Your stand changed things, really changed them." After Ward left, Jacob found Danny at the creek skipping stones. "You okay?" Jacob asked. "Just thinking about Ma and Pa. Wondering if they can see us, see what we built, see that we survived. I think they can. I think they're proud." "You really believe that? In heaven and all that?" "I believe love doesn't end just because life does. Your parents loved you. That love is still here. In this cabin, in this land, in you and Sally. They're not gone. Not really." Danny nodded slowly. "Teach me to shoot today. You promised." "I did. Get your father's rifle. We'll start with the basics." They spent the afternoon at target practice. Jacob teaching Danny, learning the work of father and son, happening naturally, easily, like they'd been doing it all their lives instead of just a few months. Sally appeared at sunset with her latest rescued animal, a rabbit with a broken leg. "Can we keep him just until he heals? You know the rule. We fix them, then we let them go." "But what if he wants to stay?" "Then he stays. But it's his choice, not ours." 3 months passed. Winter came to Wyoming territory with the fury it was famous for. Snow piled high. The temperature dropped below zero. The Morrow Fletcher family, that's what they called themselves now, huddled together in their cabin, warm and safe and whole. Spring arrived with mud and promise. They planted crops, expanded the barn, added chickens and 2 milk cows. Josiah visited once a week, less awkward now, finding his place in their lives slowly but surely. On Danny's 15th birthday, Jacob gave him his war-era cavalry pistol. "Your father wanted you to be strong, but strength isn't about guns or fighting. It's about knowing when to draw and when to walk away, about protecting what matters without becoming what you hate. Can you do that? I'll try. That's all any of us can do." Sally turned 11 that summer. They celebrated with cake Josiah brought from Cheyenne, and presents that included a real medical kit for treating her rescued animals. She was talking about becoming a veterinarian when she grew up, maybe going to school back east. "You'd come back though, right?" Jacob asked. "This would still be home. Always. Home isn't where you're from, it's where you're loved. And I'm loved here." 2 years after that terrible night at Willow Creek, Marshal Ward brought news. Luther Boone was being released from prison early for good behavior and testimony that helped break up 3 more land fraud operations. "He asked if he could stop by," Ward said. "See how the children are doing. I told him I'd ask." Jacob looked at Danny and Sally. They nodded. Luther arrived the next week, thinner and older, but with clear eyes. He stood at the porch, hat in his hands. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "Don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I found my daughters. They gave me a chance. We're rebuilding. And every day I try to be the kind of man who'd stand like you stood, like I should have stood from the beginning." "You stood when it mattered," Jacob said. "That counts. Does it? When I was part of the evil first. Yes, because choosing right even late is still choosing right. You saved my life. The children's inheritance. That matters. Luther's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. For giving me something to aspire to. After he left, Danny said, "Do you think people can really change, or do we just pretend they can?" "I think people can grow, can choose different. Luther made terrible choices, then made a good one. That good choice doesn't erase the terrible ones. But it means something. It means he tried." Like grandfather. Like grandfather. 5 years after Willow Creek, Jacob stood on his porch, watching Danny teach younger homesteaders how to defend their land legally. The boy man, now at 19, had become an advocate for homesteader rights, using the lessons learned from his parents' deaths to help others avoid the same fate. Sally worked with Doc Pritchard, now learning medicine and veterinary care. She'd decided to stay in Wyoming instead of going east. Home mattered more than prestige. Josiah lived in Cheyenne, but visited weekly without fail. He'd become a fixture in their lives, the grandfather who'd arrived too late but stayed anyway, earning his place through persistence and love. And Jacob. Jacob had become the man he'd needed to be when 2 bleeding children knocked on his door. Father, protector, teacher, friend. The ghosts of the Dawsons still visited sometimes, but they didn't accuse anymore. They approved. Marshall Ward rode up that evening with his wife Eliza. They'd become family too, the kind you choose and keep. "Wanted you to hear it from me," Ward said. "Wyoming became a state last month. And the governor, well, the new governor wants to establish a monument at Willow Creek, commemorating the stand, honoring Thomas and Martha Fletcher. You willing to have that on your land?" Jacob looked at Danny and Sally. "What do you think?" "I think Ma and Pa would want people to remember," Danny said. "Not for them, but so it doesn't happen again." "Then yes, build your monument." The ceremony happened that fall. Hundreds attended. The governor spoke about courage and justice, about how one man's choice to stand had changed a territory, about how that moment at Willow Creek had become the foundation of Wyoming's statehood. But Jacob wasn't listening to speeches. He was watching Danny and Sally unveil the monument, a stone marker with their parents' names, and below them, they stood for what was right. So must we all. Simple words, true words. After everyone left, Jacob stood alone at the monument, the place where his old cabin had burned, where he'd nearly died, where everything had changed. "I kept my promise," he said to Thomas and Martha Fletcher wherever they were. "Your children are safe. They're strong. They're good people. You raised them right. I'm just trying not to mess that up." The wind whispered through the cottonwoods, the same trees that had witnessed that terrible night. But they weren't bearing witness to tragedy anymore. They were watching life continue, watching love triumph over death, watching a family built from ashes thrive in the Wyoming soil. Danny and Sally came to stand with him as the sun set. "You okay?" Sally asked. "Yeah, just remembering." "Good memories or bad?" "Both. That's how life works. Good and bad tangled together. You take all of it and you keep walking forward." "Together," Danny added. "Together?" Jacob agreed. They walked back to the cabin where Josiah was preparing supper and arguing good-naturedly with Eliza Ward about the proper way to cook beef. Where Marshall Ward was checking the rifle Danny had left by the door, making sure the safety was on. Where home smelled like food and family and the future. And Jacob Morrow, broken soldier, who'd thought he was done with fighting, who'd sworn never to kill again, who'd tried to disappear into the Wyoming wilderness. Jacob Morrow was exactly where he needed to be. Standing had cost him blood and pain, and the breaking of vows he'd thought sacred. But standing had given him everything worth having. 2 children who called him father. A family built on choice and sacrifice and stubborn love. A purpose that went beyond survival to something greater, protecting not just Danny and Sally, but showing others that protection was possible, that standing mattered, that one person's choice could change everything. The fire at Willow Creek had taken his cabin and his isolation and his certainty that he was beyond redemption. It had given him back his life. And standing in his home, surrounded by the people he'd chosen and who'd chosen him, Jacob Morrow understood the truth he'd been searching for since the war ended. Redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about using the past to build something better, about taking all the broken pieces and making something whole, about standing when standing was needed and loving when love was hard and choosing family over fear every single time. He'd stood between innocence and evil that terrible night, but the real courage, the kind that lasted, was standing for them every day after. Being present, being father, being home. That was the stand that mattered most. And Jacob Morrow would keep standing until his last breath, because that's what fathers did, and he'd earned that title in blood and fire, and the simple daily act of showing up. Always showing up. Always standing. Always choosing them. That was enough. That was everything. That was home.